The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame. Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Raygan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by two very cool Thanksgiving-y co-hosts.
Laura Nash.
And your number one turkey, Shane Kelly. And we are recording this the night before Thanksgiving. So this is our attempt to get something in your feed on this holiday week when everyone is traveling and everyone is busy and everyone is cooking turkeys and everything. So this is going to be a little bit of a different format for us. We're going to be talking about the things that we're thankful for this year in gaming. This is also going to be a bit of a different format for me because with the holiday, I'm going to try to do very little editing on this. We're going to stick this pretty much out as is. So if you hear any weirdness, listener, that is just what we sound like. That's just the stuff that I usually cut out.
Godspeed, listener. It's chaos over here.
Mm-hmm. So since we're gathered here today around our virtual Thanksgiving table, I'll carve the turkey. Shane, you can dish out the pie. What are we thankful for in games in 2022? This year, probably one of the biggest surprises for me in games, and one that I am definitely thankful for. This is a bit of a collection of things, but it falls under one heading. This is the year that all of the gaming handhelds that were getting like held up and delayed and, we never thought would see the light of day all shipped. To me specifically, I got them all, and that's something that I was very thankful for. And I've so the ones I'm specifically talking about, we've talked a lot about on this show. The Playdate came out this year. It was in the works since something like 2018. I forget the specifics, but I was kind of not expecting that thing to ship. They kept having random delays involving things like the batteries going bad in transit or other weird stuff happening. They had to change what SoC they were using, a bunch of other changes, and things getting shipped back and forth to Malaysia on pallets on ships that had to get through, canals blocked up with giant freighters, and everyone was getting COVID, and it just had innumerable delays on the poor Playdate.
It's just such a weird object to exist too. Like it feels like it comes from an alternate timeline of gaming handhelds. It has this kind of indie aesthetic, but it's also fairly premium priced at like $180. And you can have it in any color you want as long as it is neon yellow.
I was going to say the most important thing about it is it's yellow, and I'm not kidding. I honestly think the yellowness is what makes me love it.
Yeah.
Yes. It is a really unique gadget. So, and I have to say I will check myself out of this discussion because they still haven't sent me mine. I ordered mine minutes
after I did.
After
Literally
you
minutes.
guys did. How long have you had it?
Months and months.
Yeah, like over half a year at this point, I'm pretty sure. That's weird, Shane. That's weird. I don't know what's going on with the Playdate shipping situation then. I love mine, and I still recommend it to people. But yeah, the shipping situation's kind of tough on the Playdate. So I'd say this one kind of half counts because the other two are a little bit looser. So this was also the year that the Steam Deck launched, and when they first announced the thing, they said it would be out this year, but I did not believe them, and I certainly didn't believe I would be getting mine on time. They were announced in the middle of the pandemic, and we're still in the middle of the pandemic, let's be honest, but you know what I mean. And the supply chain issues were really in full force, and I just thought, like, Valve, they've shipped hardware before, but they've never shipped this kind of hardware before, and these things are going to be like stuck on boats. These things are going to, they're going to have all sorts of issues. And their fulfillment has been incredible, actually, on the Steam Deck. They got them to people on time. They are now just straight up in stock. We're like here before there was a good long period before Christmas where you could have just put in an order and, you know, waited some amount of processing time and just get one before Christmas, which I would never have believed.
I just saw someone in the year of our Lord 2022 post photos of a PlayStation 4 in stock at Walmart, and people on the internet were reacting as though they had a photo of a previously thought extinct animal. This is the PlayStation 4, 5. Where
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure
losing
you can
my
walk into
numbers here.
Anywhere and get a 4 these days.
PlayStation
But the 5 being in stock? Yeah.
The 5 being in stock was met with great fanfare, and there was like one of them on a shelf at a Walmart. And it just blows my mind that I have a Steam Deck in my hands right now. Like it's kind of crazy.
The only reason
the current generation of consoles are not new. They came out last year, and they're still hard to get.
Yeah, the only reason that I have not ordered a Steam Deck is because I have been getting hardware all year, and I never get to buy any because I live in a tiny New York apartment. So I've this year acquired the Xbox, the Miu Mini, and the Playdate, and 2 of those are tiny, but they're also kind of like buying other consoles. It's like, is this the year I have 4 new consoles into my life? No, I will wait on the Steam Deck maybe till at least March or April, so I feel a little better about my consumption habits. But like, I am seeing you all with the Steam Deck, and I'm very jealous. It would make my life easier. I did just get an Xbox in March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're serving very different purposes in my life, but like I totally feel that. But the other handheld that I was not expecting to receive this year, and that I suppose I am very thankful for, is the Analog Pocket. These got a ton. So, I mean, I think a lot of folks who listen to the show probably are familiar with the Analog Pocket, but just very briefly, if folks aren't, since I think this might be the first time I've really talked about it on the show. The Analog Pocket is an FPGA-based handheld for mostly Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. But it has a open FPGA system, so like you can load cores onto it for other systems as well. So you can run like SNES stuff on it now, although for quite a long time that wasn't the case. I'm a little mixed on the Analog Pocket, to be perfectly honest, but the thankful part here is that I put in my order for the Analog Pocket over 1 year ago, and and they are not one of those companies that's like, hey, here's your pre-order, we'll charge you when it ships. No, they sat on my money for a full year, and this is not a cheap device. And I was starting to, like, I went through several phases where I was like, I should really just cancel that order. I'm never going to get this thing, and if I do, I wouldn't end up using it. It's not even all that cool, whatever. Psh, I never wanted it anyway. And then, you know, go through another round, like a little more news about new developments for its software and whatever would trickle out. And I say, well, maybe I'll sit on that order. I guess I'll wait and see. And then one day, surprise, I got a shipping notification. I wasn't even expecting it. I was definitely not expecting it before the end of the year. It came in like 2 weeks ago for me. And it also just happened to come in at the time when I had a pre-order for a so you know there's these companies that are doing a lot of like reissues of classic games on cartridge now. So like you can, you know, buy a brand new cartridge from like Retrobit or, you know, limited run games for like, you know, here's a copy of Battletoads and it's in a fancy new box or whatever. And those really aren't that interesting to me. Like, I don't really get the point of like buying a brand new copy of a game that already existed on cartridge back in the day, especially if the price on the new cartridge isn't like way cheaper than, you know, going on eBay and buying one of the original ones or whatever. It doesn't really like tick the collector mark in my brain, but this one somehow did. There was a reissue of a game called Avenging Spirit for Game Boy.
Oh, that is a good one.
Yeah. Avenging Spirit has a special place in my heart because we've talked about on the show before that like my first Game Boy experience was downloading a Game Boy emulator on the 486s or 386s at my middle school. And the one of two games that I vividly remember playing, I don't know how I ended up with this particular game. I think it literally might have been because it was the first alphabetically on a list of Game Boy games on a ROM site at the time, was Avenging Spirit. And it's a game that's actually like really, really good. It's this like Jalico platformer. The premise is like you play as this guy whose girlfriend gets murdered by the mob, and you become this incredibly adorable. Your girlfriend gets kidnapped by the mob, and you get murdered, and you turn into this incredibly adorable little Casper the Friendly Ghost guy. But you can only exist outside of a human body for impossibly short amount of time because this is a video game. You have to hop between bodies, and each time you do, you get the powers of the different body that you are possessing. But it's all very whimsical. So like there's boxing kangaroos, and there's women who do like crazy kicks, and there's mobsters, and there's robots, and there's like giant frogmen and wizards and stuff, and you're trying to like hop from body to body using their various different powers to collect a bunch of keys, and then I guess go fight the mob boss and free your girlfriend. I haven't gotten far enough to do that, but it's an incredible game. I have all this nostalgia for it from playing it when I was a kid, even though it's kind of a rare game and very expensive on real cartridge. So I was excited to pick up a reissue of this thing that Retrobit put out, and it's a nice cartridge and worked perfectly in the Analog Pocket, and happened to come in the mail the exact same day, which was absolute serendipity for me.
Raygan, have you thought about maybe taking a different approach to get a more authentic experience for your Avenging Spirit gameplay? You could pick up like an old compact Desk Pro, like we originally had in La Escuela Rice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And maybe delete a few system files at random just for good measure. Load up a good old NES emulator, a Game Boy emulator, and have that same introductory gaming experience all over again.
Preferably while a smoking orange is walking around the screen, or
Yes.
a llama is pooping.
Or
somewhere
the sheep,
there.
the little
Or the
desk
sheep.
sheep.
Accessory
Yeah.
type
Mhm.
guys. Yeah, that was a big deal then. We all loved those. Man, where
I
did
still
that
love
go? Little desk accessory critters.
Probably
walking
in the
around on
malware
desktop.
drawer.
Yeah.
Actually, you wouldn't you would or would not be surprised. There is a really good category for desk pets or desktop pets on itch.io.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I mean, maybe that would be a fun a fun side quest episode here for us to compare them. I downloaded one that I really loved. That was basically the goose from Untitled Goose Game, and would run around your desk and like grab your mouse cursor and like.
Oh, that's awesome.
It even has there's a feature that it has to drag memes onto your screen or little text windows.
What?
And you can customize what memes it does this with. There's like a folder of images you can get into. So I got to recommend this one. Maybe I can find a link to include in the show notes. But yeah, the desktop goose that you can find on itch.io.
That's awesome. And yeah, no, I thought that the desktop pet was gone to the dustbin of history, but I'm glad to see that someone's keeping the pets alive. But yeah, the overall like returning to the theme of thankfulness. I am very thankful that this year all of those hardware projects that I was not expecting to actually get into my hands actually got into my hands, and more so, I'm very thankful that they all turned out well. Like I was expecting good things, but a little skeptical about the play date. It turned out to be pretty much what I was expecting, which is like a really fun little device that I don't play every day, but I do still really enjoy. The Steam Deck revolutionized my life. I absolutely love it. It has become my favorite way to play video games in like almost all situations. And then even the Analog Pocket, which I had started thinking was a mistake to buy, showed up totally serendipitously with this great game. And I've had a wonderful time playing it, and I definitely don't regret it. I still think there's some issues with that device, but the price is pretty reasonable considering what you're getting, and especially now that they've opened it up for software development, there's some interesting things happening there, and I don't know, I kind of like it. So, really good year for gaming hardware, even in a year where no major gaming hardware launched. So I'm thankful for it.
I like how the thing you're thankful for is, commerce successfully conducted.
I mean, hey, look, I could start this with some saccharine thing about like I'm thankful that my third child was born. I am, guys. Of course I am. This is a gaming podcast. You don't want to hear about that.
You said it's making me happy in the world of gaming in the past year.
Exactly.
And honestly, your child being born has not been conducive to your gaming, so you don't have to mention it.
In fact, he is the enemy of all gaming. So
he's like the world's worst Tamagotchi.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Guys, the thing that when we had a delay just before we started recording, and it was a blowout. I was cleaning a blowout. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah, you're all welcome for that. I just wanted to make sure that was in your heads. Laura, any thoughts?
Well, I was going to say I have no thoughts on your child, but I do have thoughts on what I was going to say, which was I went to Seattle to visit friends I used to live with, and not to rub it in, Raygan, but hanging out with other childless adults in person, and we played a co-op board game.
What?
Yes, and we also got to go to bed and wake up in the morning and finish it, and it was still there because there was no children to mess with it. So just rubbing it in. Sorry.
I especially want to know what time you all slept into.
Oh, 11? I don't know.
God damn it.
But so I am really excited because I have not been playing board games as much because I don't have a lot of friends in my city, physical, and those I do aren't interested in board games. I can't make them change their lifestyle.
Hey, New York City listeners, hit up Laura.
Yes, please. But we got to play. This was going to a friend who you go in the basement and they just have the wall of board games on the wall. And you get to say oh, I'm in this mood. And I was like, what do you want? And I was like, I want co-op. And Justin's like, I want a cool theme. And they immediately grabbed Spirit Island.
I have played this one and it is great.
It is great. Spirit Island is a co-op game where you are deities protecting an island from colonizers. And
cool.
You are charged with just fucking their shit up so they don't colonize your group.
It's been a while since I played it, but I remember it had very cool pieces. The art style is cool, and I remember it had just a really neat board. You assemble the board right out of different parts. Yeah, it's random. Yeah, very cool.
Random parts sizes up to the amount of players you have. But what's really cool is that you are cooperating against a very difficult force.
Yeah, it's a hard game.
It's a very hard game. You are going to be, it is pandemic, but you are in that land and expand mode, but it's people, and it feels so much worse because they're taking out your huts, they're destroying your forests, they're landing in your rivers, and you're just no, my beautiful paradise, get out of here. The theme is fantastic, and it was great because we hadn't played with these friends for a really long time, and we hadn't played this game before, so we were able to talk strategy, be I'm going to play a psychic person. It felt like going back to the D&D game where you had to the first time when I inexplicably played D&D for the first time, played a bard, terrible decision because bards need to know what they're doing because it's all buffs. And so this felt like the same kind of thing where I was hi, I have these powers. Let's all work together. Smart people in an overwhelming situation. That's what I want from a co-op game. I don't want my co-op games too easy, and I want them to when you win, you feel morally righteous, which is amazing. There are very few games where you win as a co-op and you're Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a total win for theming. That is a theme that, like, the moment you said that, I was like, that sounds awesome. I would love to haunt some colonizers off my island or whatever. That's awesome.
100%. And every time you do anything, you just feel really powerful. And then, of course, they strike back and you're like, oh no, it's still hard. Like, you get to do the right thing. You are working together with other gods to ruin the day of the colonizers, because that is what the game wants you to do. And almost every game is the other way around. So it's just really cool. I hadn't played a co-op game other than like a Pandemic or something like that I'd played a lot. So I forgot how brain breaking it is to have a new co-op game where you're still figuring out the rules, and it feels hard and it feels like unfair, but it feels like you could beat it if you just figured it out. And like that feeling is one I want to keep and find another substitute, even if I can't force my friends in New York to play board games with me.
That's always a fool's errand, isn't it?
It is, because Spirit Island is like, it's not a game I would bring home to my family at Christmas. It's a game that I would play with people who like board games, who are going to go with me on this journey, who are going to really try to get into the, like, it's not as crunchy as a Puerto Rico, but there's a lot of bits and there's a lot of things to try and there's a lot of tactics. Like, you need to know your audience here. But if this is for, like, if you've been looking for a co-op game, this is it. And it's made me excited to find other ways to game with others in a non-competitive manner. Because I'm kind of like, I wouldn't say I'm over competitive games right now, but I am increasingly in social situations where competitive games are not the right fit.
Well, Laura, you are living in the only city that I ever lived in where I was able to find a regular and really good and compelling games club, like a games meetup group.
I was walking down my street and I saw a like game thing, and it was like game design club or whatever, and I got really excited. And then it was definitely for children.
Aww.
And it was like a board game meetup thing where kids played board games in the afternoon, and then they made their own in like the after school program. And I was like, that's great for the children. Where is mine?
Yeah, my experience here is like over 10 years old, so I don't even know if the group that I was a part of even exists anymore. In all likelihood, it doesn't, or may have changed forms. But New York City had some good options there. When I was living there, I was a part of a games meetup. It was literally on meetup.com was where they mainly organized. I don't even know if that's still where people go for this sort of thing. But what was really cool about it was that they did it multiple nights a week, but the night of the week that I would go, they were renting a basement room from a wargaming group. So there was a wargaming group that was even bigger and more weird than our board gaming group, that had rented a basement room that was like a big area where they had like all these like wargaming, those sort of wargaming where they have those like tables that have like lots of little models.
Yeah, someone in high school took me on a date to one of those stores, and I was like, this must not be a date. I must be wrong. And then later on in the night, they tried to kiss me, and I was like, what is happening? And they were like, we're on a date. At the Games Workshop. And I was like, no, we're not. You took me to a war games room. I assumed you were just shopping. Like, I thought you were just running errands.
Oh, man.
And we had a big fight. That didn't work out.
That's, it's hard out there for us nerds.
What if we kissed at the Games Workshop?
Well, here's the thing. Like, had I been included in the war games activities, like, maybe I would have continued. Like, if it doesn't work on me, who the heck is that working on?
Yeah, he wasn't even like...
He wasn't that far off the wheelhouse. He just had to include me.
I'm trying to come up with like Warhammer. I'm not a Warhammer.
It was a Warhammer. It was a Warhammer thing, I think.
But like, he wasn't even trying to include you. Like, hey, let's build you an army, baby.
No, it was like, hi, I'm here. Like, look at this table. These are the cool things. I'm going to talk to the shopkeeper. I'm going to buy some stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. We're just running errands now.
Cool. All right. Well, this was more like historical wargaming, where they'd have like armies of like little French dudes in special hats, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that kind of thing.
But like, what was cool about it was like, this was an established place. They had like, it was this like gaming focused space, and it was every week. And there were at least a half a dozen game designers in the group. So at least one game a night would be like people whipping out a game that they had just designed and wanted to play test. But it was also just like people really cared about the games, and it was easy to get into and out of games because it was a large enough group. And, people would bring in their like takeout food, and you'd stay all evening. So I don't know. I'm sure things like that exist, and they're worth doing. Like, I know you're like a trivia night person. Think about adding a board game night at a board gaming group to your rotation. It's a real good way to kill some time.
I think that would be lovely. Shane, how about you?
I also really want to talk about a multiplayer co-op game. I think the thing I'll say I'm thankful for really here is the Steam Deck. Like you were saying earlier, Raygan. Yeah, I'm saying I'm gonna copy you. It's because we're twins. So I'm basically saying, like, this is a game that for me fit into a really perfect little spot on that Steam Deck that has been really changing how I play games. And the game I want to talk about is called Unrailed. Has anybody here? It's a couple of years old, and it has now hit a lot of different things and started going on sale a lot. One of the things I love about Steam is things go on sale a lot. And so I picked up Unrailed for free, trying it out on one of the free weekends. And then immediately after that, I found it was like $5 on sale. I think it is still $5, which would be $5 well spent for anybody who wants to pick it up. Unrailed is a train building game that is kind of a couch co-op multiplayer game, or you can play it online. It actually has really good online with what I found to be really good matchmaking. And what you do is you and your friends together are building a train track that goes across an endless procedurally generated world that is really kind of narrow and long, and is just kind of scrolling slowly for you. When I saw this, I mean, it has a kind of a Minecraft element to it because it's a voxel-based kind of diorama look. And the way it works, I would compare the controls to something like Overcooked. In that, it works really well, I think, as a kind of a party game or like a basic pick up and play, because you can get by in this game with just the kind of direction stick and the A button, right? And what you're doing is you're picking up the different tools and then going and using them. So in front of the train, you're going to be laying down tracks. You lose the game if the train gets to the end of the tracks. So you have to constantly be building more tracks in front of the train. And in order to build tracks for the train and to make room for the train to keep moving, you're out in front of it using a pickaxe to carve up mountains and get iron, and an axe to chop down trees and get wood, which you take back to the train, which has a hopper that you're putting things into to generate your tracks. And it really is a funny game, like a lot of these kinds of games that have this co-op multiplayer element. I would compare it maybe also to Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, which we covered on the show. It has a lot of personality. You get to choose a little character to play as, and the goal is to get basically just to the next station. Every few hundred meters, there's another station, and you have to build the track to that station and get to it. And when you get to each station, you get to do upgrades to your train. And this is where I really found a lot of joy in the game, because you have to really cut a path, and sometimes it's a really tricky, chaotic situation because, maybe somebody leaves the axe in a really weird, awkward place. You can actually completely screw yourself over by leaving the axe way off on the left side of the screen, and it scrolls off and it's just permanently gone.
Gosh.
So you have to be taken care of. When you get to these stations, you get these little bolts that you can invest in new or upgraded carts for your train. And those include some basic things like maybe a second hopper to drop materials in. And then there's just some oddball, weird ones like one of my ultimately became my favorite is a ghost cart that the whole point of it is basically you can walk through it, because a big chunk of the game, a big chunk of the challenge of the game is around making sure that you don't get stuck, because it is this kind of chunky tile-based design, and you're cutting these paths through these mountains and forests, and you can very easily kind of screw yourself over by not making enough room. And sometimes there are simply just places where it's just going to be a really tight squeeze, and the ghost car really helps with that. But there's a lot of different cars that you can add to the train, and some of them do really cool stuff like automatically mine stuff around the train or whatever. And then as you get to the different these different stations, you can also upgrade your engine, which sends you to a different biome. And there's these multiple levels of biome in the game that get progressively weirder. You end up at the very end in outer space, doing like a space train. And I have just really found this to be a really satisfying game to play. Like that, even playing it online with random strangers has been really fun. And that's not something I would say about any of the games that I compared it to. Like Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, I do not think I would ever play that with someone that I wasn't in the same room with. Overcooked, absolutely not.
No way. No way. No way.
You should only play that with someone with whom you would like to have a divorce.
I agree. I had a genuine fight with my wife.
We played that
playing Overcooked.
We played Overcooked for so long continuously that we forgot to eat like both lunch and dinner, and then we were just like angry and hungry at each other. And we were like,
that sounds awful.
No, we had so much fun playing it. We were just so intensely into the game, like we forgot to take care of ourselves, and then we were incapable of playing the game because we hadn't eaten, and it was not good.
Don't play that one hangry.
No,
this one works in that context, and I played it with some friends. Shout out to my dude Robert. And I played it with weirdos online, and I've actually put a lot of time into this game, playing it with random people on the internet. And part of it is just that the objective to this game is so clear and straightforward, and what you're doing is really like everybody is looking, so far in front of the train and seeing like what the upcoming obstacles and challenges are. And so you're working together on that, and people just naturally pick up different jobs because there's a limited number of tools, and people are picking up these random tools, and there's the tools I think at the outset are, I mentioned the pickaxe and the axe, and there's also a water bucket because you have to keep water in the water tank on the train. And there are a lot of ways to upgrade stuff as you go, as I mentioned. So but I never found myself like really like hating the person that I was online matched up with. But the game does offer you like really good ways. Yeah, I did have a couple of times where someone was like completely doing nothing, and I just kicked him out. And it also has, for those online games, a pretty good little emoji wheel that has some pretty comprehensive options on it, so that you can say like, hey, more track, or cut down trees, with just some basic symbols. So that kind of interaction in an online game always works well for me. If you have that online real person, there's something added by having it be a real person, but you can also just sort of chat with them. And if you want to play this by yourself, by the way, you can play it with a little wind-up robot who perfectly responds to your emoji wheel requests. So if you say, chop down trees, that robot is going to go and do it. And you can even give him waypoints and things like that to tell him exactly what to do. So I've been really pleased by how polished the game is. I've put a ton of time into it. I keep bugging Raygan to play it. But
yeah, every time you bring it up, you bring it up when I am either exhausted,
yeah,
or
when is that not true though, Raygan?
Well, that's very true. like
I understand. You've got a brand new baby in the house. You are. You. That's why I keep asking, because one of these times you're gonna be well rested.
I have just bought it.
And well, there you go. I'm glad that this works. If any of the listeners, especially are on our Discord, want to get together and play this, I think it would be really fun to do on a Discord call with 4 people. You can play with up to 4, the online experience for the game, even if you're not playing it with friends, I think is good. So that is not something. I would say
maybe
for a lot of games.
I'm going to try to get this edited and out the door as quickly as possible for folks to have for their holiday weekend. So if you're hearing this, and you're hate your relatives, maybe hit Shane up.
This would be a good one to play with those same relatives, I would say. So this is simple enough. Even if you hate, maybe even especially if you hate them, because you can probably mess them up in very subtle ways once you get them into the game. That is to say. So yeah, that it's available on Steam. I think it's also on basically every other console because this is a 2020 game. It's on PC, PS4, and Xbox One is what I'm seeing. So I played it on the Steam Deck, and for me, it was a perfect Steam Deck game.
So I wanted to loop back around to something that I was thankful for in this year, and it's something that's kind of shifted for me over the course of 2022. So at the beginning of 2022, we had talked a little bit about Game Pass because obviously it wasn't new for this year. It's been a Microsoft strategy and thing for a while, but it felt to me like this was the year that it started to click for me.
Well, what is it, Raygan? Don't leave me in suspense.
What? Game Pass? Like, I'm talking about Game Pass.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Raygan.
Right. So, but specifically, this is the year that Game Pass started to really click for me. I played a few games on Game Pass because I had a subscription last year, but this year we an absolute ton of games that we covered for the show were Game Pass games. And it seemed to me that Game Pass was absolutely hitting with knocking it out of the park with narrative games this year. Incredible stuff like Citizen Sleeper and Frog Detective. All 3 games are on Game Pass. The new one just launched. The Dodgeball Academia, which we talked about earlier this year, was on Game Pass.
I believe Game Pass just got Vampire Survivor.
Vampire Survivor
is on Game Pass.
Speaking of games that are eating up my time on the Steam Deck, that Vampire Survivor is just one hell of a game.
We talked about Tunic. Tunic was on Game Pass.
God, Tunic came out this year. It's so good.
Yeah. Just I'm not even thinking of all of them, but a lot of the games, a whole lot of the games that we've talked about on the show this year have been on Game Pass. And I think it's because they've been doing a really good job of picking stuff, not because there's some sort of Game Pass bump that they're conferring upon games. They are just doing a really good job of curating their service. Also I started to buy in a little more on their ecosystem strategy here. There's some concerns. I'm even starting to feel a little less concerned about the potentially deleterious effect of a shift to subscription services on the industry. We still have yet to really see some of the long term of that play out. But
I think we've seen the entirety of it play out if you look at streaming services like Stadia.
Well, okay, sure, that's true. So the beginning, middle, and end of that one. But what does it do to the incentives for an indie developer, that kind of thing? But I'm in general more positive on not only what kind of cool stuff I'm getting out of Game Pass, but on Game Pass's ecosystem and effect on the industry at large than I was a year ago. So we're going to talk next week about Pentiment, which I'm playing right now. I know you guys are too.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have not started it.
Oh, dang. You got to start it, dude. I'm really, really liking it. I don't want to spoil anything here, but it's lighting.
Oh, I'm 75% sure I'm going to hate it.
Why? Okay. Maybe we'll sidetrack that. But Shane, nah, dog. It's really good.
You think that's my shit?
I don't know. Do you like mysteries?
Seems real wordy.
Shane don't like the words.
Okay, Shane is an illiterate, but that's okay. It's a game about people who are mostly illiterate. So
he's illiterate except when he loves IF Comp. So right, Shane, come on.
That's true. Come on.
But it's a one of the things that the developer of that said, that's from Obsidian. They're a storied developer of CRPGs and stuff. And the developer, the lead guy behind that game, they started that game after Game Pass acquired their studio. And he just sort of took the perspective of like, well, now that Microsoft owns us, I can just pitch whatever I want because the financial incentives like are totally different. It's, he can make a niche game, or at least he felt he could make a niche game for a niche audience because it was going to be on Game Pass, and not, he did not look at it as like, now I have to make something for the Game Pass audience that is going to be this like, mass market thing. And he made the least mass market thing you can imagine, a 2D woodcut style medieval murder mystery game that is absolutely a banger so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. So, and even little aspects of the Game Pass story that I hadn't really interacted with previously have started hitting for me. I'm finally starting to play games using their cloud streaming. I've done that for a couple of games. Pentiment is working really well there, but I've tried it for like Tunic and other things like that. And their cloud streaming is starting to kind of work for me. I
have to say about this. So the thing that I think I have to point to for Game Pass is what it's doing for getting players into the games. It really broadens that like reach for the games. And I've seen this I have played Game Pass games and then immediately gone and bought the same game on Steam so that I can play it on my Steam Deck. I think
that you sample it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of the same thing as the game I mentioned just a minute ago, Unrailed. Like, I played it for free because it had like a free weekend on Steam, and then I went and paid $5 for it. Like, I think, and when you look at the actual catalog of what people are putting out onto Game Pass, it's this big swath of indie developers, and I'm pretty sure they're getting a lot more eyeballs by being on Game Pass. I mean, that said, there's a lot of criticism around like, maybe like, how does this actually shake out in the end once, where does the money flow
Immortality.
to?
That's the other game I was trying to think of. Like, what was it that we loved this year that launched on Game Pass?
Absolutely.
Immortality.
It was so easy for me to recommend Immortality to my friends that have Game Pass because they were able to just like click into it and see if it clicked for them. And it's these really weird things like that I think actually really benefit and might find an audience in ways they might not have if they had the barrier to entry of like actually putting money on the barrelhead.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like there's the concern that like this is an entirely different business model, and it puts a lot of power in Microsoft's hands. It puts a lot of the like metrics of like, what does success mean for a developer creating a game that launches on a service like this.
There's a lot of people worried it might be creating a bubble of,
right?
Like,
yeah. And there's a lot of concerns there. And we don't know the answers to all of those things, but hearing the developer of Pentiment talking about his experience made me feel, now he's a little bit different because he's literally working for a developer that was acquired by Microsoft, and his stuff was going to be released on Game Pass 100% by default. There was no negotiation involved in terms of like, well, how much money will Game Pass give me versus what money could I justify the development if I weren't on Game Pass, et cetera. It was pretty much a done deal for him. But overall, it did make hearing his story made me feel a little less nervous about its effect on the industry. And also, it's not like having Game Pass. Game Pass has been a big part of my year, but it hasn't been all of the games I've been playing. And it's not. I still feel pretty positive about the Steam is still doing great. Other consoles are still doing just fine. So I don't know. I hope I'm not proved wrong, but this year has seen me be a lot less skeptical and a lot more enthusiastic, both as a player and just sort of like as a admittedly not totally expert industry observer about Game Pass. So I think I am thankful for it to this year in a Thanksgiving-y kind of way.
I do want to revisit this in maybe like a year or two. Obviously, we take a long-term approach here on the short game. But I mean, I think about it, and like Game Pass ultimately shakes out to be about like $9 a month. Isn't that right? So we're talking Like,
Yeah, I think it depends on whether you're doing regular Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate, and there's ways to get various discounts. I will remind people that you can still, if you're willing to sign up for a year or more in advance, you can still totally get the deal where you buy Xbox Live Gold cards.
Yeah.
And cash those in and convert them to Game Pass for a very small amount of money, and you get a huge discount. I bought 3 years in advance, and I think I think 3 years cost me like $100 or something. Like it was it was more than that. It was like 130 or 150 or something. I forget. I don't remember. Don't quote me on the pricing, but it was like surprisingly like extremely cheap to buy 3 years in advance using that trick, and you can still totally do that.
So what I think is ultimately going to shake out, I'll just put on my prognosticator's wizard hat for a second, is like the price of a AAA game has just kept going up, and a lot of them are going for like $70 now. So
and even that, like if theoretically they should cost more, or at least the publishers would tell you that. And
So wizard hat on, like most gamers are really not necessarily like the three of us on this podcast. They're probably buying a couple of games like that a year, most likely, and really playing the hell out of some of them, especially if it's your online multiplayer shooter that you're going to be spending your entire life in. I think
or they're playing 0 of them and they're playing 100% of Fortnite or something, and they're spending $70 on skins to make you look like Goku.
So a lot of the Game Pass just needs to like catch like one of those games out of people's budget in a given year in order to be a really good value proposition, because like they cost a year of it if you're doing it and you're not like trying to like flip different Bitcoin credits to like pay it off like 3 years in advance like Raygan is. Like you're spending like 100. And that's like feels really good to do if you're doing it monthly. So it's not any big hit at any one time. But like if they can catch like one of those big AAA games out of people's budgets, I think it'll be a really sticky service for them. But then you end up with that person really locked in and paying every month. I remember what happened when I kind of quiet quit on my PS4, right? And I set it aside. I hadn't turned it on in months. And then I looked in my email and I realized I'd been buying PlayStation Plus Gold or whatever for probably like 6 months to like maybe close to a year unused. Right. So like that's the kind of that's the kind of thing that's going to be funding the industry going forward.
And I am the third type of person in the scenario where I am periodically like I just do a month and I do not auto renew, and and if I am surprised when it's off, I buy it immediately, and then the next time we play a game for the podcast, I renew for another month. And I am that like this does mean that I'm constantly buying Game Pass, but I have probably paid for 6 months this year, and I have played so much Game Pass, guys. Like, but I have only paid probably for 6 months because I keep turning it on and off.
Can I complain about Modern Life for 1 second? Modern Life requires so much fucking
admin
bookkeeping.
It's a lot of bookkeeping.
And the number, like these days, if you want to watch, like if you want to keep up with the shows, like you have to be real quick on that unsubscribe button to like Paramount Plus and HBO and Disney Plus and like Warner Brothers Plus and I don't know, like Super Sentai Plus, whatever it is that has that one thing that you need that I can't stand
Girls
it.
5 Eva is moving to Netflix, and I'm so excited because people are going to watch that show because I've been screaming about it, and it's been stuck on Peacock.
I didn't know that. That's a great show. Yeah. Thank you for telling me that. I'm looking forward to that because I didn't finish. I think I watched most of the first season. There's more seasons than that now, right?
There are 2.
Nice. Girls 5 Eva.
Which you'll all be able to watch soon. So.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, because it's gonna get so popular when it's on Netflix. Like it's gonna do like what happened when they got Cobra Kai from YouTube, and it showed up on Netflix, and suddenly everyone was like, "Oh, what is this show, Cobra Kai?" Like that's what happened when that moved to Netflix, and it's gonna happen to Girls 5 Eva, and it couldn't happen to a better show. It is Sarah Bareilles on it, writing songs. Like, it's fantastic.
It's very funny. It's very, very funny. Let's see. Anything left that we might be thankful for this year?
I'm just gonna do I'm very thankful, but I haven't fully enjoyed like all of the Kickstarters for puzzle boxes that I've done over the last 3 years that had pandemic shipping delays all seem to have arrived this year. So I have this big box. Like it is beautiful. It is awesome. Every time I look at them, I'm like, this is such like a great 6-hour time sink, but like I'm just trying to find the time for them. But Post Curious, the Emerald Flame, and their tarot card game, their tarot puzzle game called The Light and the Mist. It's a gorgeous tarot deck, but it's also like 6-hour puzzle thing, and it's a narrative. Like
that's a cool idea.
It's so cool. Like if I'm going to play test it, and if I like it, I'm going to probably harass everyone in the podcast into playing it because it's 6 to 8 hours. But I need to make sure it's accessible first. But like this is me getting excited because the boxes are piling up, and I'm like, these were all things that I really wanted like 6 months apart, and now they're all here. So the winter's going to be terrible and long and cold. I will probably be playing these. So I am excited currently about mail, like game, but I have physical games, and I'm not going to forget about them because they're just like there in my tiny apartment staring at me, wanting me to play them. And it's not like a Steam queue where I can forget they exist. There is a box there that I want to play.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about those. It's funny how like a lot of what we were talking about, mine and yours, were both like the pandemic shipping queues are clearing up, and that's ultimately at the bottom of what I'm thankful for.
And also that I am so happy for these creators because I'm finally getting to play their games. Mm-hmm. And they've been like, they prototyped these years ago, and they're finally getting people's hands. Like, that's got to feel great.
Absolutely. I'd love to see some pictures when you crack some of those open.
Yeah, and my copy of Amending, which is the keepsake embroidery game where you're like doing a solo storytelling game where you're rolling dice and you're like creating a memento of your journey, has arrived too. So like,
there's a guy I follow on TikTok that is a puzzle box collector. These are not like the exact same thing you're talking about. These are like, you know,
the mechanical twisty turny
puzzle boxes, you know. And I have just been addicted to watching these TikToks. This guy seems to have a bottomless collection of them. And every time I see one, I'm like, oh my God, I just have to have that. I click through and it's like $450 for like, you know, a piece of white oak that has been carefully handcrafted into something that you have to like wrap 3 times on and spin counterclockwise in order to pull a folded dollar bill out of or whatever. You know, it's but just puzzles, man.
I mean, well, Emerald Mist, I think I kickstarted it for $50 or $60. It came with 2 refill packs. So I can completely reset the game and send it to people.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Twice. And you know, refill I've seen these sell for $15. So like I can just keep sending it to anybody.
I've never heard of any of these things having a refill pack. That's cool.
Yeah, that's Rita Orlov, the designer, is like insistent that the game should come like anything that you think you're going to destroy during the game or things people might want to write on, she'll give a second copy of it in a pack. And so she includes a copy in each game, so it's replayable at least once. And then for like $15 you can buy additional refill packs. So I could, in theory, send this to everybody on the podcast and just be like, buy a refill pack, play my $50 to $70 game.
That's amazing.
Which is awesome.
I've just remembered something that I shared with Raygan on Twitter. Now I have to talk about it on the podcast. So there's in the when I think puzzle boxes, I think Hellraiser.
Oh
yeah.
Yep.
You know the cube that if you twist it and turn it just right, Cenobites pop out.
Configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and they drag you into a universe of pain. So there's there's an Amazon listing that's basically for the box from Hellraiser, like as an actual little puzzle. But the people that put together the Amazon listing like had never seen Hellraiser, and like this, and probably don't have the trademark for this puzzle box or whatever, copyright or whatever. And so it's the most generic, like, you know, those photoshopped ad copy things where it's like, you know, a kid picking up and playing with X thing photoshopped into their hands. Like, it's that, but the Hellraiser cube.
I saw that too, and it was like positioned as like a STEM toy or something.
Yeah, it was like STEM toy educational. Hellraiser cube. Learn everything you can about this universe of pain.
I love it. Well, I think we're close to the end. This is we're gonna fire this one off as quickly as I can, so that our listeners have something to distract them from their MAGA uncle or whatever universe of pain their Thanksgiving might potentially become. I'll personally say I'm really I didn't mention this at the top, and now I should. I'm personally thankful that I ordered and was able to receive the Baskin Robbins turkey cake. It's an ice cream cake that's shaped like a turkey.
Oh, wow.
The legs are it's all iced with like icing, so it looks like a shiny turkey on the outside, but the legs are ice cream cones with ice cream in them, covered in frosting, I guess. And inside it's cake, and they have a video online of how you're supposed to carve the turkey cake, and they're basically like, just carve it like a regular turkey. And yeah, into little slices. And I'm really, really looking forward to doing that. So
this sounds great.
That's what's another thing that I'm thankful for this Thanksgiving. But listeners, why don't you tell us what you're thankful for in gaming this year? Anything at all. We'd love to hear about it. We've got a What's Making Us Happy channel on our Discord that is a great place to drop that kind of thing. So I'll close the show with a thank you to the listeners. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. Thank you for supporting the show on Patreon. We are very thankful for you, and thankful for our all of our listeners, and especially our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join their ranks, you can go to patreon.com/theshortgame, where you can, even just $1 a month will get you access to our Discord. You get access to a Patreon feed for episodes where you get things a little bit early. And you get a warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that you are supporting the show, and it does make a big difference to us. You can also support us at the $5 level, even just for just a little while, and I will send you some stickers. If you want some stickers, send us $5. And let's see, you can find me you should find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net. You can find our show is still on Twitter @_shortgame. You can find me still kind of on Twitter @Raygan K. I've also moved to Mastodon. You can find me @Raygan @bird.rodeo. So I've recently moved to my own instance. The bird.rodeo domain that I bought for Bird Week stuff ages ago is finally useful to me in some way. Laura, where can people find you?
For now, you can find me on Twitter still @LauraJNash.
And Shane, where can people find you?
Well, first off, just don't find me, but I'm also on Twitter @8BitShane.
And listeners, thank you once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.